Hey guys, I want to tell you about a dream I had back in March of 2014. Now, I've been meaning to post this on YouTube, but I've been busy. I've had a lot of things to do, and I haven't gotten around to it. So, in my dream, I was living in a house that wasn't mine, and inside the house there was a lot of natural colored wood. It was kind of dirty and damp inside. What's odd about this dream is this is the first time I've ever had a dream that was within a dream, so it was a double dream state. And in the dream I dreamed that my niece had committed suicide, and I woke up from that right after I had learned about it, and I was still dreaming, and I saw a note on the door, and it said, "Your sister killed." So when I first saw that, I was pretty angry, thinking that she was murdered, but then when I saw herself, I realized that she had committed suicide. Now, fortunately, both of them are still alive, so I'm just glad it was just a dream and not real life. Now, in my dream, I was still asking myself, why would my sister kill herself? And I felt compassion. I was worried about them. I wanted to make sure that they were okay. As I was thinking about my sister and my niece, my ex-wife was also in my dream, and she was there affirming the bad news that, yeah, she's the one who posted the note on the door, and my sister did commit suicide. Now, again, another oddity here is that my ex-wife and I haven't been together for about 2 years, so I don't know why she was in the dream. All of a sudden, we ended up at the beach, my ex-wife and my very young daughter. And I was talking to my daughter, and I was explaining to her about meteors and about how high the water would be if a meteor were to hit the ocean. And right at that moment, there was a meteor that came from behind us, and I knew it was going to hit the ocean. I don't know why, just the angle of it, the approach, I knew it was going to hit the ocean. Now, we watched the meteor as it came towards us. It was kind of slow, and it left a smoke trail behind it, as meteors typically would do. Then I saw another meteor to the right of that first one. Now, this one was a little bit smaller, but much faster. And then I saw another meteor, and it went between the first two. And then I saw a fourth meteor. So this is very odd. I've never dreamed about meteors in my entire life, but there were 4 meteors in the air. Now, as we watched the meteors, they formed a triangle in the air. So it looked something like this. There were 3 meteors in the bottom and 1 meteor on the top. Now, forget about the images there. I know it's a pretty bad picture there, but that's kind of what it looked like. Now, the second meteor, the one that was on the right, it flew over us really, really fast. And as it went by, I knew it was going to hit the ocean or somewhere way past the ocean, but I hadn't heard anything. But I knew it was going to hit. The first meteor hit just to the north of us, and it went into the ocean. Now, we saw the splash. It wasn't that big of a splash, and while you would typically expect this big giant tsunami to come if a meteor hits, it didn't actually do that. The water started to rise, like what you would see during a tsunami, but it was just more of the rising of the water, but not necessarily crashing waves or anything like that. So my immediate reaction was, grab my daughter and where can we go for safety, because the water is going to reach us and we need to figure out what we're going to do. So right at that moment I saw a small island. It was about 800 yards away. I knew it was a long distance. We're going to have to run pretty fast to get there, so I grabbed my daughter's hand and just started running as quickly as possible towards the island. As we're running, the water actually caught up to us, and it just started lifting us up off of the ground, and it pushed us towards the island. Now, at this point in time, we weren't able to touch the bottom of the beach any longer, and I turned around in the water, and I saw my ex-wife there. She was staring at me, and she was just giving me this look like, how could you leave me? I felt really, really bad in the dream. I had never felt that bad before. Like, how could I actually leave her behind and, let her, succumb to what was going to happen? Now, of course, she knows how to swim, but that wasn't the point. I had left her behind, so it was very strange for me. Now, as the water started pushing us, it pushed us to a tree that was on an island. And I said to my daughter, hey, we've got to get to the top of this tree, because I'm thinking the tree was tall enough, the water's rising, there's no way the water's going to get to the top of that tree. Let's go there. So we started to climb the tree. And it was very easy to climb the tree, by the way. Now, we stayed at the top of the tree for a few minutes, and I did look back. Everything was completely gone. There was no beach. There were no more people. It was just ocean water, and that's all that was out there. And the water was still rising. Once again, I reflected on my ex-wife, and my heart was broken because of what I did. I didn't bring her along with us. And right at that moment, I asked God to forgive me because I felt really bad about it. Now, while we're at the top of this tree, the water kept rising, and I took my daughter's hand because it had reached the top of the tree, and we floated to another small island with more trees. Now, the trees on this island were different. They were bound with some kind of material or some kind of cloth, and it looked like somebody had taken care of the trees. You know, sometimes when you take like a Christmas trip down Christmas Tree Lane and you see some trees that are wrapped, it was kind of like that. The tree looked very pretty, looked very nice. I was thinking, wow, this is a nice looking tree. And I said, well, let's climb to the top of this one also. So we climbed to the top of that tree, and the water came up and reached us once again. So I'm looking for another place, trying to find something for safety, and I saw a small building sitting on top of an island that had all kinds of white sand. So it was just a building sitting on white sand. So we let go of the tree and we floated over to the island. As we got to the island, there were natives on the island. So we walked around the building, and there was this native woman who approached us, and she looked at me in a very peculiar way. I felt confident, I felt safety, but I didn't even know why. And then she said something as she passed by me, but I don't know what it is that she said. She took me to this print in the sand. It looked like a leaf or a footprint of some kind. I didn't really know what it was, but I was looking at it and I was thinking, well, that's kind of a neat looking image. But then all of a sudden she became very happy, and the water at that moment stopped rising. Strangely enough, I wanted to take the credit for it, as though because she gave me a look, I had something to do with this, but I didn't. So I immediately said, it was God who stopped this water from rising. Then, still had my daughter, and I grabbed her by the hand, and the old woman took us to a door that had slits in it. It was an old wooden door with wide slits in it. We can see through the slits. Now we can see through the slits, but we couldn't see what was behind the door. So they were just, visible. So as we opened the door, we went in, and it was a tunnel, and it was heading east, but it was also taking us down, like into the earth, well below the water. The tunnel was very lit. It was easy to see. Suddenly, we were at a guard checkpoint at a shopping mall. Now, the tunnel was still right there behind us, and he was asking for our passports. So I had a backpack on for some reason, and I gave him my passport, and I was trying to give him my daughter's, but he wouldn't take it, as though, oh no, she doesn't need a passport. She's okay. She can go through. Now, once we were allowed to go through the checkpoint, I felt relieved because people were there. They were trying to get to the checkpoint, and they were not being allowed to go through. So once we got past the checkpoint, we stood there, and we were in a very large room. I could still see the tunnel. There was a mall behind us, and there was a tunnel on the west that was going up. That was the same one we just came down from. To the north, there were several people trying to get through the guard. They were not able to do that, and they were not very happy about it. To the south was a solid wall. So I can only tell you that the tunnel came down, and there was a solid wall next to the tunnel. If you kept going straight, you would actually run into the mall, so it was like between the mall and the tunnel there was a solid wall there. Now, one of the guards I noticed was talking with people who were trying to get through, and he was distracted by a man. He was talking to the man, asking for his backpack. So as the guard was going through his backpack, he told the man to go through, but he didn't actually look at his passport. But then once he saw his passport, he became ecstatic and started screaming, "Yeah, arrest that man!" And by that time, the man had already taken off. He was running up the tunnel, the same tunnel we had just came down. He had found a small opening in the floor, and he crawled through the tunnel that was actually led underneath the tunnel. Now, from the south wall, I could see west, and I could see the tunnel. So I was looking to see where the man was going, and as I leaned against the south wall, there was some slimy green substance on it. I didn't know what it was, but as soon as I touched it, I felt very odd and strange. Then there was a small girl that was with the native woman on the island before we came down. She was somehow down there with us. And she was about ready to run back up the tunnel, and as she approached me, she stopped. She looked at me. It was a very strange look. She sniffed me, she smelled me, and then she backed off like she was trying to avoid me. So I walked towards the north wall, where I found a woman. It wasn't the native woman, it was a different woman, and she started telling me about the man who ran up the tunnel. She said his name was Marduk. Now, I don't know who Marduk is. I've never heard of Marduk. So I was trying to figure out, well, who is this Marduk guy? And for some reason at this point, when she was talking to me, we were actually holding hands as though she was trying to either read me or get something off of me. I don't know. But she was examining me, and she knew that I was infected with Marduk. The slime that I had touched, I was infected with him or it or whatever it was. And she began to tell me that no one has ever escaped him. You know, once you've been infected by him, you either die, and that's it, because there is no option. That's what happens when you get infected by Marduk. So she said, there is one possibility for you to live. Ask Marduk for forgiveness, and he might let me go. And I'm thinking, well, if he lets me go, does that mean he's going to let me live? Because if I'm infected by him, you just said I was going to die, and now you're saying I could, be let go if I ask him for forgiveness. I don't know who this guy was. So I asked her, who's Marduk? And she said, he wants to be in control. And I said, in control of what? And she said, the tunnel, the city, everything, including above. Now, that gave me a shock in my system, and I thought, well, who is this Marduk? What will happen to me if I ask him for forgiveness? What's that going to mean for me? Am I going to have to worship him? And if I don't ask him for forgiveness, am I going to die? These are all the thoughts going on in my head. So I was pretty distraught. And I was talking to myself, and I was thinking, well, if I ask forgiveness to someone who isn't God, what's going to happen to me? Is it like I'm going to be worshiping a false god? So I'm running through all these questions in my mind. I'm thinking, well, if I don't ask him for forgiveness, what's going to happen to me? Am I going to be infected? And it's going to cause me to die. So that's one option that I have. Or will it turn me into a creature? Because I felt like the slime was turning me into something that I didn't want to be. So if I asked this Marduk for forgiveness, the slime would go away. If I didn't ask him for forgiveness, this slime was going to infect me very, very badly. And would I die from it? Would I turn into this hideous creature serving Marduk? So I was really, really distraught in my dream. I was trying to run through all these different options, and suddenly I woke up. I was scared out of my wits, and I prayed to Jesus for forgiveness because I was thinking that was probably some sign from God, or maybe it wasn't. I don't know. But I can tell you, I felt terrible. I felt like, I had let God down. This was probably a dream about me, and maybe, this was God warning me that something's about to happen, and, I shouldn't be worshiping a false God. Now, this is all conjecture on my part, but there it is. I just wanted to share it with you because I have no idea what a lot of this dream really meant. I can tell you that I love my family very much. I love my daughter, obviously, very much, and I care very much about my ex-wife as well. And I am a Christian. I do believe in Jesus Christ. I can tell you that I fall a lot and I sin a lot. It hasn't been until this last year that I've really, God is calling me. I don't know what's going on. I feel it in my heart that I need to worship God more now than I ever have in my entire life. I'm reading the Bible again. I'm becoming more acquainted with Jesus Christ, my Lord and Savior. But something's going on, and I felt this dream was giving me some sort of sign. Anyway, if any of you know what this means, or you can interpret dreams, or you know what some of this means, please share, because I'd be interested in hearing what you think about it, because I'm still very confused about it. And I wish I had posted this back in March, but like I said, I've been busy. Anyway, thanks. Talk to you again. Thanks.